Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the sit down. It is with great pleasure and excitement that I can say that the king is back. Vasyl Lomachenko, is set to make a return to boxing after a 2-year hiatus. He essentially retired last year, a year on from his win over Kambosos Jr. And honestly, he's a former world champion. He's one of the greats. He had like close to 400 amateur fights where he was undefeated. He moved into the pro ranks. In his second pro fight, he was in world title contention. He didn't win it, but I always say it's because he just didn't have the experience in the pro ranks to kind of understand that style. Either way, he went on to achieve great things. He was always very small for his weight, went on to become world champion, had a lot of the belts at some point, and in a really upsetting and what I often call a heartbreaking night for me, he lost his belts to Teofimo Lopez, sort of started rebuilding. I always say with Lomachenko, he's the undisputed story that just never happened. He had, in my opinion, I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I had like a mild to heavy obsession with Lomachenko. He's the guy that made me fall in love with boxing. I started watching him around the same sort of time that I started boxing myself, and I just remember the first time I saw him in the ring, it was against Rigodeau, and I just remember thinking like, this guy is a sorcerer. The way that he moved, that footwork, the lateral movements, just such a pleasure to watch. And you know, when he had his loss and he started to rebuild and he came back, and you kind of thought, okay, he's working up to gaining all the belts. It was at the time when this culture of undisputed had really started to take shape in boxing as well. And unfortunately, he didn't get the win over Devin Haney. Now, it wasn't a robbery. I don't think anyone could call it a robbery, but there was lots of split opinions about who won that fight. I am biased, obviously. I've got, obviously skin in the game because I like Lomachenko as much as I do, but I did feel that he won by a round or two. And of course, there was this whole argument that there was a few swing rounds in there, which, the culture of boxing would mean that swing rounds would sort of go towards the champ, the reigning champ, who at the time was Devin Haney. Either way, whatever. You can make your own opinions on this. I stand by my opinion that Lomachenko won that fight. But you could see how devastated he was after the fight. There was video footage of him backstage crying after the fight because obviously that felt like, the opportunity to put himself in that undisputed conversation, which he didn't obviously manage to do. He went on, he fought Kambosos Jr., he got the win, and I believe he had a bit of an injury. It kept him out of the ring for some time. And either way, a year on from that, he announced his retirement. And I for one, was extremely, extremely sad to see him leave boxing. I think he's just done wonderful things. And it was such a pleasure to watch him box. Either way. He's now announced that he is returning. Well, I say he has announced. I'm definitely getting ahead of myself. The Ring Magazine and Mike Coppinger have announced that he's making a return to boxing. It's being targeted for autumn of this year. By all accounts, he's back into a training camp, and he's not looking, in true Vasyl Lomachenko style, he's not looking for any warm-up fights. He wants the big names. He wants the big fights. There seems to be quite a lot of interest from Turkey Al Sheikh, the Saudi influence, seem to be very interested. I can understand why. He's boxing is a spectator sport, and who is more entertaining than Lomachenko? Very few, very few. Don't come at me for that. Very few people are more entertaining than Lomachenko. So he's targeting these big names, and he wants the big fights, and he wants to put himself in the upper echelons of the sport, deservedly so, in my opinion. The question remains, who will he fight? When will he fight? Now, prior to retiring, there was, of course, these talks of him facing Gervonta Davis, and that just never transpired. That's a potential name that he could face. I know that Davis has had some sort of, issues, legal issues in recent times, but it seems as though there are talks about his return to boxing as well. So that's a potential name that he can face. Obviously, when we're thinking about some of the ones that he has already faced and potential rematches, they're not really viable names anymore. Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez are two names that definitely come to mind, but they have now, moved up in weight. They're now in the welterweight division. So that is just not a viable option for Vasyl Lomachenko. Now, when this came to light, in the boxing community, Shakur Stevenson reacted with some type of excitement to this news. So that is a potential name if Shakur decides to move back down. And there's lots of chit chat. I've been having lots of chit chat amongst boxing circles, friends, etc. And, Laurie, for one, said that Lomachenko has no business returning to boxing and that Shakur would, play with him like it's his food. I don't know if I agree with that. Styles make fights, and Shakur he's absolutely amazing. He's such a tactician. Don't get me wrong, his timing, all of the rest of it that comes into play. But I think that Vasyl Lomachenko's style could be problematic for Shakur Stevenson. Now, maybe I'm saying that from my position of bias. Who knows? But it is just my opinion. Other names that come to mind definitely include the other champions. So we've got Raymond Morataya. That's an option for him. And also Abdullah Mason. These are not names that are, throwaway names either. They're both super, super skillful. They're both really talented. They're champions for a reason. So there are lots of names that Lomachenko could potentially get in the ring with, get in the mix with. So I, for one, am very, very excited to see who he faces next and how it goes for him. Obviously, he's not in his prime anymore. The guy is definitely outside of those prime years. So, and he spent 2 years out of the ring. So it's really a question of, okay, cool, you don't want a warm-up fight. I understand, Vasyl Lomachenko he is that guy who would sort of make that decision, right? In his second pro fight, he's going for a world title. He's going for world title contention. So it kind of gives you a sort of indication of his mindset, the type, how much he rates himself, how much he backs himself. But there are some questions for me, mostly because I just don't want to see him lose, which is that how has the 2-year hiatus from boxing played a part and made an impact in his abilities in the ring? That's the first one. The second one is, with the age being where it's at and him not being in his prime, is he able to still get off, the classic Lomachenko, Vasyl matrix style that he's got, the thing that makes him so special? So, definite questions that will need answering. I can't wait to see those questions answered. I'm so excited. And I don't know if it's feasible. I don't know if it's wishful thinking on my part, but I would just absolutely love it if that undisputed dream of his could come into fruition and he could get that. I'm intrigued to know what you guys think, how you think he's going to fare up. Do you think he's making a mistake asking for the big name so soon? Do you think he should have a warm-up fight? Drop your thoughts in the comments, guys. And please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hype this video as well and like and share. And I look forward to catching you on the next episode of The Sit Down.